You know, when we usually talk about human flaws, why we get sick, or why we make terrible decisions, why we suffer, we tend to look at it through this very grounded lens of biology or psychology, or maybe just incredibly bad luck.
Right, yeah.
We think of it as a localized individual problem, like it's your genes or your upbringing or your choices. But what if the reason your back hurts or, the reason you have anxiety isn't actually your fault at all?
Which is a pretty bold question.
Yeah. What if it's the result of a massive cosmic manufacturing error?
That definitely shifts the blame quite significantly.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes the weight entirely off the individual and places it on the architecture of the universe itself.
Exactly. So today we are unpacking a really fascinating worldview from a text called the Cultivation Chapter. It's written by an author named Su Feng, and it outlines the philosophy of this movement or framework called Lifechanyuan. And I want to say right up front, because we're dealing with big religious texts and massive cosmological claims today, our goal on this deep dive isn't to validate this theology or, tell you what to believe. We want to reverse engineer it.
Right, impartial analysis.
We want to see how this author built his worldview by blending his own unique origin story of the universe with excerpts from the Bible, the Quran, the Diamond Sutra, and the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah, we are basically looking at the mechanics of the philosophy.
Yeah.
How does the author construct this roadmap, and what is the underlying logic he uses to guide a person toward transcending time and space?
Okay, let's unpack this, because this text essentially argues that human suffering is the result of angels making a mistake.
Right.
But before we even get to the cosmic origins of humanity, Shu Feng splits the concept of personal growth into two entirely distinct buckets: cultivation and practice. And he draws a very hard line between them.
He does, and making that distinction is really the foundational step of this entire philosophy. In his framework, cultivation is entirely about cognition. It's recognition, exploration, and judgment. So it is the mental and spiritual act of finding the correct methods and the correct paths.
Right.
Practice, on the other hand, is the execution. So the text defines practice as selection, restraint, persistence, and this is crucial: restraining your emotions and desires to adhere to what is right and give up what is wrong.
So instead of the old cliche building a house metaphor where, one is the blueprint and one is the bricks, it feels more like music to me.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Like cultivation is taking the time to perfectly tune your instrument, studying the sheet music, understanding the acoustics of the room. It's the preparation of the mind.
Right.
But practice is the actual concert. It's your fingers bleeding on the strings, playing the notes night after night, and refusing to miss a beat, even when you are completely exhausted.
That is a much better way to look at it, actually.
Yeah.
Because you can practice a song for 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
But if your guitar is out of tune, if your cultivation is off, the music is still going to sound terrible. You absolutely need both. What's fascinating here is how the text then structures this journey of cultivation into three very distinct, highly pragmatic levels: elementary, intermediate, and advanced.
And the elementary stage really threw me, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because usually when you read a spiritual text about transcending reality, step one is like abandon all worldly possessions and go live in a cave.
Oh, right, the ascetic route.
Exactly. But Shui Feng's elementary stage says the goal is to discard illusions and return to simplicity, but with the specific outcome of achieving individual health, wealth, and freedom. It actually demands that you complete your daily duties first.
It is highly practical. It treats spiritual enlightenment not as this vague, floaty concept, but as a tiered psychological system.
Right.
The text explicitly states that completing your worldly duties lays the foundation so you can be free from cares and worries. The logic is sound, really. You cannot move to the next level of spiritual growth or focus on transcending reality if you are constantly panicked about paying your rent or, fixing a broken tooth. You have to secure the base first.
It's basically Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but applied to cosmic enlightenment.
Exactly.
So once your physical baseline is secure health, wealth, freedom, you move to the intermediate level.
And this is where you focus on cultivating the heart. You've handled the physical world, so now you handle the internal emotional world.
Okay.
The text describes this stage as dispelling the heavy fog that shrouds the mind. It's about calming and stopping the chaotic thoughts so you can transcend the secular world and end your worries. You're basically preparing the soil for the final stage.
Which is the advanced stage. And this is where the mental gymnastics really begin.
Yes, I do.
Because the advanced stage is about cultivating nature. And the text explicitly says this requires unconventional thinking, wild imagination, and doing the opposite.
Right.
And the ultimate goal here is to literally walk with angels, celestials, and Buddhas. Oh, and it uses a poem to highlight how unpredictable this whole process is. It says, after 10 years of cultivation without enlightenment, once enlightened, you reach the jade pool.
Which, just for context, the jade pool is a classical Chinese mythological reference. It's the divine dwelling place of immortals, so it symbolizes ultimate spiritual perfection, peace, and longevity.
So you can be tuning that guitar for a decade with absolutely nothing to show for, and then suddenly, in a single flash, you're playing Mozart with the immortals.
Exactly.
But I want to zero in on what we're actually cultivating at that advanced stage. Because
Right.
the text says we are cultivating nature, but it's not talking about forests and rivers.
No.
It means human nature, like the original characteristics of the human gene structure.
According to the text, the greatest creator designed a completely flawless blueprint for humanity.
Okay.
In Buddhism, this is referred to as the root of wisdom. In celestial terms, it's spirit or spirituality. This original blueprint was absolutely pure. And the text claims that if humans could maintain this pure spirituality, we wouldn't get sick, we wouldn't age, and we would live forever.
But clearly we do get sick and we do die. Like, we are incredibly flawed. So what happened to the perfect blueprint?
Well, the greatest creator didn't build humanity directly.
Wait, really?
Yeah, the creator designed the blueprint but handed the actual execution over to the angels. And the text says that the angels had imperfect technology.
Imperfect technology.
Right. So when they were building humanity based on the perfect blueprint, they accidentally mixed impurities into human nature.
Wait. So humanity's flaws are literally a cosmic IT glitch.
Basically, yeah.
It's like the greatest creator is the lead software architect who writes absolutely flawless code, but then hands it off to the junior developers, the angels, to deploy.
Exactly.
And they use the wrong compiler, or they introduce bugs during the deployment, and now the entire human race has a software bug where we get sick, age, and die.
That's the premise.
But hold on, if the greatest creator is so omnipotent and brilliant, why hand off the deployment to junior developers who are going to mess it up? Like, why not just build it perfectly from the start?
That is the eternal question of theodicy, right? Why does a perfect creator allow imperfection? In Shufeng's framework, it serves a functional purpose.
Okay.
The less perfect your human nature is, meaning the more impurities or bugs you have, the more you sink toward a lower life space.
Oh, I see.
And conversely, the more perfect your nature, the higher you ascend toward higher life spaces. So it creates the necessity for free will and the journey of cultivation. Cultivation is the deliberate, manual process of removing those angelic impurities.
Oh, wow. So we have to manually patch our own soul's software.
You are debugging the angelic mistake. The bugs are the impurities: ego, greed, attachment to the physical world, fear.
Right.
So cultivating your nature at the advanced stage is rewriting the code back to the original blueprint designed by the greatest creator.
Okay, but debugging your own soul is a massive, abstract task. Like, how does someone even begin to do that?
Well, rather than inventing a method from scratch, Zuofeng pulls in heavy hitters from world religions to create a psychological foundation.
Right, because if the goal is to stop obsessing over our physical flaws and worldly problems, we have to figure out how to break that psychological attachment.
Exactly. And Zuofeng argues the blueprint for that detachment has been hiding in plain sight in Western theology. He curates a very specific reading list, starting with the Western Abrahamic traditions, specifically the Bible and the Quran.
Oh.
He uses these texts to emphasize the absolute necessity of looking past the temporary physical world. If you want to fix the software, you have to stop obsessing over the hardware.
That makes sense. Let's look at the mechanism of how he uses the Bible, for example,
Yeah.
because he highlights Psalm 53, where God looks down for anyone who actually understands.
Right.
And he pulls from Romans 8, which warns that the mind governed by the flesh is death, but governed by the Spirit is life and peace. And then there's Psalm 37, telling you not to envy evil people because they wither away like grass.
Plus, 1 Timothy, noting that godliness is valuable for both this life and the next. So rather than just telling readers to be good people, it seems like he's using these verses to forcefully shift a person's locus of value.
That is the exact mechanism at play. Human beings naturally assign high value to the flesh, our physical bodies, our material comfort, the wealth of corrupt people we might envy.
Yeah, of course.
Romans 8 creates a stark binary: Flesh equals death. Spirit equals life.
Right.
Sufeng uses this to tell his readers that investing your energy in the physical world is a losing stock. It is guaranteed to crash. The only permanent asset is the spirit.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, though, because he moves to the Quran to hammer this point home, and the imagery he selects is incredibly intense.
Very intense.
He pulls from Surah 30, which describes the Day of Judgment. It says, men will be like scattered moths, and mountains will be like carded wool. And Surah 20 says, the mountains you think are firmly fixed will pass away like clouds.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, remember the goal of the intermediate stage of cultivation.
Which was dispelling the heavy fog.
Exactly. It's to dispel the heavy fog that shrouds the mind and end the worries of the heart.
Okay, but I have to challenge that because I'm genuinely confused here. How does visualizing the literal end of the world, where humans are crushed like scattered moths and mountains are shredded into wool, calm my mind?
It sounds terrifying, right?
Yeah. It sounds like the absolute opposite of peace.
It seems totally counterintuitive until you consider what usually causes our daily anxiety. We treat our problems like a bad performance review, a dented bumper, an argument with a neighbor like immovable mountains.
Right.
They consume our entire field of vision. So Suofeng uses the Quran's apocalyptic imagery as an extreme psychological shrinking tool.
Shrinking the problem.
Yes, if you can genuinely internalize the visualization that literal massive geological formations like mountains are going to blow away like loose wool, your performance review suddenly doesn't matter.
Oh, wow.
It forcibly shrinks your daily earthly worries down to zero. The overwhelming terror and awe of the apocalypse is utilized to neutralize the chronic, petty stress of daily life.
That is fascinating.
It breaks your attachment to the physical world, which gives you that blank slate needed for the advanced stage.
I see it now. The Bible and the Quran act as the wrecking ball. They just obliterate your attachment to the physical world. You realize your stress is pointless, and you achieve that intermediate goal of an empty, purified mind.
Exactly.
But an empty mind isn't enough to patch the cosmic glitch. You need a new operating system.
And that new operating system requires, as the text said earlier, unconventional thinking and wild imagination.
Right.
So to teach that, Shuofeng shifts away from the Western texts entirely and brings in Eastern philosophies. He introduces the Diamond Sutra and the Tao Te Ching.
And if the Abrahamic texts were the wrecking ball, the Eastern texts are like walking into a house of mirrors.
That's a great way to put it.
It is all about extreme paradoxes. Let's look at the Diamond Sutra excerpts. It starts right out of the gate by saying, what is called Buddha Dharma is not Buddha Dharma.
Right.
Which, for anyone unfamiliar, Buddha Dharma generally means the teachings of the Buddha or the fundamental laws of reality. So it's literally saying the ultimate truth is not the ultimate truth.
Yes.
It tells you to produce a mind that dwells nowhere. It says that all conditioned reality is like dreams, illusions, bubbles, shadows, dewdrops, and a lightning flash.
It is fundamentally dismantling the concept of a solid, objective reality. If the Quran said the mountains will pass away, the Diamond Sutra goes a step further and says the mountains were an illusion to begin with.
But the practical application of this is what really threw me, because it says the highest state, the arhat state, which in Buddhism essentially means someone who has achieved perfect enlightenment and broken the cycle of rebirth, is reached by having absolutely zero competitive or fighting heart. And it takes this to an extreme with the concept of karma. It says if you are despised by other people, it's actually eliminating your past sins.
Yes.
Let me push back on that for a second. If someone is treating you terribly, abusing you, or totally despising you, you're supposed to be grateful because they are burning off your past life karma. That feels like a very dangerous philosophy that could easily enable abuse.
That is a very common and completely valid modern critique of karmic acceptance. But within the strictly internal logic of Shuofeng's framework, this is the ultimate definition of doing the opposite.
Okay.
Because human instinct is to defend the ego, to fight back, to harbor resentment. The Diamond Sutra demands you let go of the self entirely.
Right.
If there is no self, there is no one to be insulted. You accept the mistreatment not as a victim, but as a necessary cleansing process for your soul's code.
It's the ultimate hack to neutralize an enemy, really. You just refuse to play their game entirely.
Okay.
And this ties perfectly into the excerpts from the Tao Te Ching, which introduces the concept of act without action.
Which is arguably one of the most misunderstood concepts in Eastern philosophy.
Yeah, because to a Western ear, act without action sounds like permission to just sit on the couch and do nothing.
Right, but it's not laziness at all.
Yeah.
Think of how the text describes the Tao. It is formless, nameless, silent, the mother of the world.
Right.
Great things start small. The text points out that a massive tree grows from a tiny sprout. A 9-story tower rises from a pile of earth. A 1,000-mile journey begins with a single step.
Yeah.
And it relies on these incredible paradoxes.
Mm.
The greatest straightness seems crooked. The greatest skill seems clumsy. The greatest eloquence seems tongue-tied.
So how does act without action actually look in real life then?
What the text is doing is teaching the reader how to navigate the illusion. The Diamond Sutra shows you reality is just bubbles and shadows.
Mhm.
The Tao Te Ching shows you how to move through those bubbles without popping them.
Oh, that's interesting.
It means moving in accordance with the natural flow of the universe, rather than trying to force your own ego-driven will upon it. When you try to be perfectly straight, you tense up, you force it, and it ends up looking crooked.
Right.
True skill, like a master carpenter or an elite athlete, often looks clumsy or effortless to an untrained eye because there is no tension. They aren't forcing the action.
It's like a surfer. You don't create the wave, and you certainly can't force the wave to go where you want it to go.
Exactly.
You just paddle to catch it, and then you adapt to what it does. The ocean is doing all the heavy lifting. You're just acting within its boundaries.
That is a brilliant way to put it. You cannot debug your spiritual code using the same rigid, forceful logic that created the bugs. You need the wild imagination and the fluidity of the Tao.
Right.
There's also a brief mention of Zhuangzi, another foundational Taoist text, which talks about associating with the creator above and transcending life and death below. You are shifting from a rigid physical being into a fluid spiritual one.
So we've gone from tuning the instrument of cultivation to uncovering the angelic IT glitch that ruined our perfect nature.
Yes.
We used the wrecking ball of the Bible and Quran to destroy our worldly attachments, and then adopted the fluid, paradoxical mindset of the Tao.
That's the journey.
So what does this all mean? How does Shuafeng bring all these massive, disparate concepts together into a final takeaway?
Well, he synthesizes it in a section called The Words of Swiffing. He describes these ultimate non-active laws of the universe.
Okay.
He says they are formless, invisible, and unpredictable. They come like thunder and lightning, yet they leave like a dream. You cannot touch them, you cannot steal them, and you cannot hide from them.
And he lays out some incredibly high stakes at the very end. The text literally says, comply with it, everything goes smoothly, peace for 10,000 years, resist it, full of bumps, disaster extends to descendants.
Yeah, pretty intense.
I'll be honest, that sounds like a flat-out threat. How is a modern, everyday listener supposed to apply a worldview where resisting the natural flow literally curses your grandchildren?
If we strip away the grandiose cosmological terminology for a moment, the core thesis Wolfgang is presenting here is fundamentally about friction.
Friction, explain that mechanism.
Think about everything we've discussed today. The angels introduced a bug into human nature, our tendency toward ego, desire, and attachment.
Right.
When we act on those bugs, we create friction. When we obsess over worldly wealth and envy corrupt people like the Bible warns against, we create financial and moral friction.
Yeah.
When we panic over daily problems, instead of seeing the mountains turn to wool, as the Quran suggests, we create psychological friction.
I see where you're going with this.
When we fight back when despised, instead of letting it go like the Diamond Sutra teaches, we create social friction. We are resisting the formless, non-active flow of the Tao.
We're basically paddling fiercely against the current, burning all our energy and wondering why we're drowning.
Exactly. And that resistance causes ongoing suffering. It creates bumps. And that suffering doesn't just stay with you. Your stress, your ego, your friction impacts how you treat your children and how they treat their children. That's the disaster extending to descendants. Generational trauma, effectively.
Whoa.
But if you comply, if you accept that the mountains are just clouds, if you act without action, if you cultivate your nature back to its pure state, you remove the friction. The result of zero friction is, as the text says, peace for 10,000 years.
That makes an abstract cosmic threat incredibly practical. It's really just a roadmap for eliminating psychological friction.
Precisely.
We have really covered some immense territory today. We started by drawing a hard line between cultivation, tuning the instrument, and preparing the mind, and practice, the physical execution.
We did.
We learned that you actually need to secure your health and wealth in the elementary stage before you can start clearing the mental fog in the intermediate stage.
And we explored the fascinating concept that our human flaws aren't a personal failure, but an angelic mistake during the deployment of our original blueprint.
The ultimate cosmic IT glitch. And to manually patch that glitch, we saw how Suifeng weaves together these diverse global texts, using the Bible and Quran to forcefully detach us from the physical world,
Right.
and then deploying the paradoxical wisdom of the Diamond Sutra and Tao Te Ching to teach us the wild imagination needed to navigate reality without tension.
It is profound synthesis. It takes seemingly disparate religious traditions from the Middle East to Eastern Asia and unites them under a single functional purpose, optimizing human nature.
I want to leave you with one final thought. In the excerpts from the Tao Te Ching, there was a specific line that said, disaster is what fortune depends upon, and fortune is where disaster subdues.
A great paradox.
Think about that cosmic angelic glitch we talked about earlier. Without that mistake, there would be no need for cultivation. There would be no journey, no growth, no enlightenment. So the next time you face a massive setback in your life, your relationships, or your career, ask yourself, is this actually a disaster? Or is it just the necessary dewdrop, the fleeting lightning flash, setting up the exact conditions for your next great fortune? Keep cultivating, keep practicing, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.